I'm depressed. You know, sometimes if you're a conspiracy theorist, you got to think that they turned over the city to de Blasio. It's like the poison pawn in a chess match. Because they noted that if you listen to this description, it's just a terrible, terrible situation. But I'll get past it. I am at a point where I've spent the better part of a week trying to figure out what I was really going to say tonight. And the honest thing is, I really don't know what to tell people to do or what they should be doing. But I'm going to try a couple of things and a couple of observations. Bill, used 1980 as a year where this kind of major turnaround begins to happen in the global economy. And some people, Les Leopold argues it's 75 and give or take 5 years. But it's basically taken us 4 decades to get into this hole. And for the progressive movement in New York City, right now, everybody's very excited. This is a terrific moment for them. It's fraught with opportunity, and it's potentially very dangerous. How do you deal with a mayor that's run on the basis of that he's on our side? 12 years of Bloomberg, 8 years of Giuliani, 4 years of a Dinkins administration that never really got any momentum going, 12 years of Koch, 4 years of Beam.
There was LaGuardia.
There was LaGuardia, but fortunately, I can claim that was before my time. Right? I think that we don't know what this really means. And frankly, we don't have as developed a left as we had when even LaGuardia was around. I want to talk a little bit about the private sector labor movement because, I know the labor movement better than I know most things. Of the little that I do know. Private sector labor movement at this point has to really think about what they want. The truth of the matter is, for elements that have survived, much of it has been crushed. But in this city, for much of it that has survived, their dependency on their relationships with finance, capital, the real estate industry are critical. Right. And they look at this moment as, can the progressives and can this progressive mayor get the private sector economy of the city going and keep their members working? For the public sector unions, who have been kicked from pillar to post and without legally eliminated collective bargaining, really, for a long time in this city, there's been no serious collective bargaining. The public sector unions, workers, and key elements of it with some power feel that they are owed substantial amounts of money. And they are right. The difficulty is, for the progressive movement, for the mayor, and I don't envy de Blasio his task, is that there is some money. He'd almost be better off if he could turn the pockets of it inside out and say, I'm really broke. But there's some money. And for us, that raises real difficulties, I think, in terms of how can we govern. Who gets what? How do we do this? If we bum rush the door of City Hall with all of our demands, who's first? The unions, the poor, the homeless, the healthcare industry? We are now faced with the possibility of solving some problems. I think we need to learn not to try to solve them all at once. And what's going to be very difficult in the next few months is what are the priorities of both this incoming administration and of the people in this room and many other rooms like it. Who do we help first? Do we take the $3 billion that the Fiscal Policy Institute says they think is there and do right by the city employees? There's not enough for all of the retroactivity that they claim that they are owed, and they are owed. In fact, the teachers, they're 2 contracts behind, and the contract, first one they missed, the other unions got 4%, and they consider that to be the entry-level discussion.
That's right.
If we get caught up in the details of who gets what, I think it'll be a short-lived, wonderful experience. I think for us is where can we build going forward? Can the progressive movement prioritize among itself? The Occupy Wall Street people stirred the world with identifying that there's 99% on one side and 1% on the other. But the truth of the matter is, there are gradations within that 99%. Some have more challenges than others, and some have more power than others. And in the city here, I'm going to say this, and everybody, I got a lot of old friends in here. The unions, elements of the unions will be part of whatever comes next and goes forward, but they won't all be there. The potential to crack here is real and immediate. And the question really is going to become, and we saw this in Bloomberg's second administration when we had a little bit of money, and everybody was scrambling at City Hall, and the advocates for poor were out on the steps during the budget process, and the teachers were working behind the scenes. And who got what? Well, those that had some political power in the city got a whole lot more than others. We are faced with bits of those dilemmas right now. Many of the unions of this city service the poor of this city. My own personal priorities are, if I were mayor, it would first be affordable housing. I don't see how we can keep a working class in this city. We are driving it to the periphery of the market, if you will, already. Bloomberg was a walking contradiction in that he advocated for more immigrants and recognized that the city needed 1 million more workers in the years to come, and did absolutely nothing to house them. Homelessness is worse than it's ever been, and those of you that go through the Port Authority bus terminal on a cold night like this, and you can smell it before you see it, you know that the homeless people of this city are growing like wildfire. And in the boroughs, there is a sense of despair that this mayor is going to have to try to solve. Schools. If housing and schools were treated as basic infrastructure, we could solve a lot of problems in this city, including higher ed. I'm at the PSC, and I can hear Barbara, the ghost of Barbara, saying, higher ed. Everybody talks about education. Nobody says higher ed. Higher ed. Truth of the matter is, when you think about student debt, maybe the demand for a free city university actually begins to make sense for the progressive movement. Maybe the way we solve long-term debt is we get families out from under that by returning to the original mission of the university of the working class. Can we do it in a year? No. But can we build a program that over 20, 25 years gets us back to some of those basic supports for working people, the working middle class and the poor? I don't know, Mike McKee used to tell me if we build 50,000 units of affordable housing for 10 years, we end up exactly where we are. But where does the money come from, and where do you cite it? My own personal view is you cannot solve the housing crisis in this city without building more public housing. And there's very little political support for it. So where do we go with that issue? And where do you put it? They are proposing to develop in the middle of public housing, private luxury development. Where do those people go? They don't care. They go to the Port Authority on a cold night like this. I think what we need to do in the next year or 10, if we can hang on to power at City Hall, is to develop a view of economic development in this city that is democratic and transparent and engages Wall Street, which has been the subject of this. How do we fight Wall Street? Well, you know, we hated the freaking operators of the steel mills and the auto plants, and we defended those industries. We demanded that workers within them have rights, and we demanded that they be socially responsible. We have to find a way to fight Wall Street, make it pay its fair share without destroying the jobs that they do nourish. I can't wait for socialism. I'm too old. But we can do a lot of things. They can tithe, we can tax them, but they have to start putting into the city, and they need to start by getting back the money that they stole from the pensions of the working people of the world, not just the city. I want to talk just briefly about the political moment, because I think that the election of de Blasio puts the mayor of the city, as mayor of the city, puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the governor of this state. And how the governor decides to deal with some of the issues of a progressive mayor and a movement around him when he knows that the mayor controls very little of his own revenues. The people in this room know this, but we need to tell everybody. The mayor doesn't have the power to get the money that he wants easily. He controls a little bit of the sales tax and real estate taxes. Everything else he has to go to Albany for. That's what we lost in '75 when this period that Bill so aptly described started. They didn't just decide they're going to take money and put it over somewhere else. They beat the hell out of the working people of this city, laid off thousands, tens of thousands of workers, brought the labor movement to its knees, asked them to ante up the money to save the city. And they have broken the back of the unions of this city ever since. And they made us pay for it as we went. The same can be said for the United States. We spent 40 years engaged in wage suppression in the United States. For me, my three core things right now are real jobs, real wages, and real rights. We have too many people that don't have full-time, meaningful employment. Those that have jobs often don't have any wages. I won't name him because he's here, but a friend of mine told me about his daughter who worked for Victoria's Secret. She used to have a job that was 20 hours a week, slightly above minimum wage. They turned around, they offered a 7 and basically say, keep your cell phone with you. Yep. And that's the reality for tens of thousands of workers in this city. How does the mayor change that? Not by himself. Not by himself. The people who provide child care services in this city, food services, they have been living with their backs to the wall. The public sector unions have been outside the Agency for Child Services every year for the last 8 years. 1707 of AFSCME has been without a contract longer than 20% of the population was born. They can't get a break. Can this mayor do that? Yes, he can. But I don't have a short-term solution. The question is this victory in New York, victories in Seattle, a couple of other little places, can the progressive movement begin to cobble together a program that people will support to do things differently? Will they accept progressive taxation as a solution to some of these problems? There is a push in New York State to restore the marginal tax rates at the higher end, which this current governor's father took down. There is money. I have 1 minute. I'm going to end with one other little piece. I wanted to just talk about our responsibility here. Some of our friends who've been in the movement for a long time on the outside are going to be asked to go inside. My own feeling is if they are offered meaningful positions in this administration, we have a responsibility to go. But they have to be meaningful. They can't be figureheads. They can't be fig leaves. We need to support those people. We have brutalized our own through my entire career in the left. And we have to find a way to nurture everybody through this period. I don't have an answer. I think we're very good at describing the problem. We have not governed in a long time, and I'm not even sure it's we. I am not sure it's we. I wish this mayor well, the movement's got to get bigger and tougher. I would like to spend 6 seconds on the left labor project. A labor without a left goes nowhere. We can work very hard to forge a left wing of the labor movement in this city that is non-sectarian. But we need a left. If we leave this to the center forces, they will break down. The hospital workers will support the health industry.
Yep.
The building service workers will support the building industry. The construction workers will play the role that the construction workers do in the private sector. It is a ladder out of poverty for some. It is not enough. Thank you.